Good evening. Welcome back. Climbing our days in Sfiras HaOmer and climbing the daf in Yevamos. Maseches Yevamos daf Memches. We are at the first of the very long lines in Mem Zayin and Beis, all the way toward the bottom. And we had said in our Mishnah, Echad ger ve'echad eved meshuchrar, that it seems to be that the halachos of a ger, of a convert, are similar to that of an eved meshuchrar. Now, let's just be super clear. An eved has multiple moments of mikvah. When they first become an eved, to become from a goy to the halachic status of an eved, which is similar to that of a woman, they have to go to the mikvah. When they become meshuchrar, to be totally Jewish, that's another mikvah, another kabbalah mitzvos. So what we're talking about here is this second mikvah go of the eved is compared to the ger. Kasal kadaitach, what I might have thought is that what we're talking about that's similar between a ger and an eved meshuchrar is lekabel alav ol mitzvos, that the kabbalah mitzvos of the ger has to be present, and so too by the eved meshuchrar, that there has to be kabbalah mitzvos. And the Gemara says that's not necessarily true because we have a brisa that doesn't agree with this inference. Or minhu, the brisa says, Bamed dvarim amurim beger. When do we say that there's kabbalah mitzvos? That's only true by a ger. Aval, look at this, black on white. The eved meshuchrar ein tzarich lekabel. So how can you say in our Mishnah echad ger ve'echad eved meshuchrar that they have the same din of kabbalah mitzvos? The brisa says that that's not true. The brisa says that kabbalah mitzvos is only true by a ger, but it's not true by an eved meshuchrar. To that the Gemara answers, Amar of Sheshes, 4 lines from the bottom, Mem Zayin and Beis. Lo kasha, that is not a difficulty. Harab Shimon ben Elazar, harabanan. This is a machlokes tanaim as to whether or not there is a need for kabbalah mitzvos by the eved meshuchrar as he is being freed from an eved Kanaani into a full-fledged Jew. Do we need kabbalah mitzvos at that point? Yes or no? So let's see what the machlokes is. The Gemara says, the Tanya, there's a brisa. The brisa speaks about Eishes Yifas Toar, Uvachsoes Avia ve'esima, that she cries for 30 days for her father and mother. Today we'll be speaking extensively, somewhat extensively, about this unique din in Chumash, that you can take a POW, a woman who is beautiful from war. You can even marry her. However, you have to go through a significant set of steps. We're going to learn about how many days it is. It says Yerach Yomim. What does Yerach mean? Yerach is a Chodesh. Okay, we'll discuss this in the Gemara, a bunch of shitas as to what Yerach means, and we know she has to do something with her nails and hair. We'll discuss that too. Let's get there. So in regards to this woman, she's basically an Eved, right? She's an Eved. You captured her. She's going to be an Eved, and then if you want to free her to marry her, she has to be an Eved Meshuchrar. So that's where the comparison comes in. So with the Eishes Yifas Toar, does she need Kabbalah mitzvos? Says the Gemara, 3 lines from the bottom, Bamed dvarim amurim, Shelo kibla aleha. So that's when there are limitations. Aval kibla aleha, if in fact she is Makabel mitzvos upon herself, matbila umuter bamiyad, then she is able to be married immediately. Now, this immediately does not override Yerach Yamim. The Rishonim point this out. The commentaries on the side explain that what we're just saying is that she's now eligible. But in order for her to become Meshuchrar, for her to become free Meshuchreres, for the grammatically correct people, so then for her to become Meshuchreres, she needs to have Kabbalah mitzvos. That is the Shita of the Tanna Kama. But Reb Shimon ben Elazar Omer, no, she does not need Kabbalah mitzvos when she is becoming a Meshuchreres. Kofel madbila l'shem shivchos v'chozer madbila l'shem shichror, that she can be forced to go to the mikvah the first time to become a shivcha and eved kananis, and then she can be forced again to go to the mikvah to become a shachreres, to become a regular Jew. Top of memches manalef umuter b'miyad. Here too she would be permissible, and this is the machlokas. Yes, there are those who say that by being meshachrer and eved that they need Kabbalah mitzvos. That's the shita of the Tanna Kama. That's the shita of the Chachamim. And Reb Shimon ben Elazar is of the opinion that there is no need for there to be any Kabbalah mitzvos by the Eishes Yifas Toar. Omar Rava, my time with Reb Shimon ben Elazar, why would he be so lenient to say that this woman does not need any Kabbalah mitzvos when she is going through the process of shichrur? So says the Gemara on the top of Memches Amud Aleph, Dichsiv, because the pasuk writes, Kol Eved Ish Miknas Kesef. Let's learn the whole pasuk. If you have it on the side, join along. Otherwise, I'll read it out loud. V'chol eved ish miknas kosev umalta oso az yochalbo. If you have an eved and he's uncircumcised, no good. You cannot eat the korban pesach. How do we know that from the pasuk? The pasuk says that once umalta, then uz. Only afterwards are you able to. So what does that mean? That if a man owns an eved and the eved is an orel, he cannot benefit from the korban pesach. That's a pasuk in Chumash. So what's the diuk from this? Line 3. Eved ish v'lo eved isha, says the Gemara. Can it be that the avadim must belong to a man, but if they belong to a woman, then the din doesn't apply? Of course, that's not the case. Ella, what then is pshat in the pasuk of kol eved ish miknas kesef? So says the Gemara. Ella, Eved ish atamal bal korcho. When it comes to an eved who is under you, he's your employee, he's your eved. So then you can circumcise him, and we need to insert here. He does not need kabbalas mitzvos. You can force him into his status of shiur bal korcho, even against his will. Doesn't matter. We don't need his permission. That's Shitas Reb Shimon ben Elazar, who says that there's no need for shichur, which he learned from this pasuk. Tamal ben ish bal korcho. But you cannot circumcise someone else's son bal korcho. This is the sugya. What kind of shlichus do you need to get by a bris? I did this for all three brises today. One of them, the father was a goy, so you don't have to ask rishus from him. I function as bezdin, and I kind of take over. The mother gives rishus. It's understood, it's implied, but really the father, there is no father. So therefore, I am representative of bezdin to do that bris. But typically speaking, I need to get rishus. So I have a whole little speech, really, you should be up here and scrubbing in, and then everybody laughs. Okay, and then they appoint me as their messenger. Do you have to pick up the scalpel? Do you have to not? Well, okay, this is the whole sugya and how to be mamana. Fine. But anyways, I can't do that bris without meaning. You cannot do someone else's bris. So that's what the Gemara says is the distinction, shita number one. And the reason why Reb Shimon ben Elazar holds that when it comes to shichur, that you can force the person to convert even without kabbalas mitzvos is because of this pasuk, that when it comes to the eved, as it relates to Korban Pesach, you can force the person to have a bris, and we assume that is equivalent to not just having a bris, but also kabbalas mitzvos. Well, that's a good marimakom. And in fact, it's such a good marimakom that what are the Rabbanan going to do? The Rabbanan say that you do need kabbalas mitzvos, but how can you say that you need kabbalas mitzvos after this drasha? The Rabbanan, what do they do with this? So the Gemara says, Mem Ches Amud Aleph, 6 lines down, Amar Ula Kishem She'iatam Mal Ben Ishbal Korcho, just like you cannot circumcise another person's son against his will. Kach Iatam Mal Eved Ishbal Korcho. No, you've learned the pasuk the wrong way. The halacha is that you cannot do a circumcision on an eved. You cannot force his hand. Says the Gemara back to the Rabbanan, Ve'lo Haksiv Kol Eved Ish. That's not true. The pasuk says all avodim. How can you say that that's not? You don't even make any sense. How can you say that there's no din of forcing this person? It seems from the pasuk that you're allowed. Says the Gemara, because when the pasuk is talking about that eved, it's not talking about what you think it is. Ahu, the Rabbanan's understanding of the case of Bal Korcho is mivayle lecha de Shmuel. What's a Shmuel? Say to Amar Shmuel, Hamafkir Avdo. Hamafkir avdo yatsa lecherus ve'ein tzarich get shichrur. Fascinating din. Normally, when you have an eved and you want to be meshacher him, you need a get. However, if you are mafkir him, again, a different mechanic, right? We're not talking about get, where we're saying, I want to disown you and make you free. We're just mafkir. It's a different mechanism, right? So if I mafkir him, he goes to cherus and he does not need a get shichrur. Where do we know this din from? Shneimar, Kol Eved Ish Miknas Kesef. Shmuel uses the same pasuk that Reb Shimon used to learn his shita. The Rabbanan used to teach the din of Shmuel. Eved Ish asks the Gemara, below Eved Isha, would halacha be true only if the master was male and not female? No, that's of course not the case. Ella, how do we understand the pasuk that is teaching us the din about mafkir? Ella, says the Gemara, Eved sheyesh lo rishus l'rabo alav kari Eved. V'shein rishus l'rabo alav en kari Eved. A one you have total control over, that person's an Eved, and you can free him without a get. When you don't have control over, that person's not an Eved. By definition, if you have an Eved, you have to be able to be mafkir him, and that's what Shmuel learns out for the pasuk. So the Rabbanan has a shita; they're able to substantiate their claim, and this remains the machlokas between the Chachamim and Reb Shimon ben Elazar in regards to whether or not during the process of shichrur, if the Eved must have kabbalas and mitzvos, yes or no. But the Gemara has a problem with this. Third of the way down, Mem Ches Amud Aleph, Maskif L'Rapapa. Eimor Deshamas Lahu L'Rabbanan. I could understand the sheet of the Rabbanan that you require kabbalas and mitzvos be Yefas Toar. Why? Because this Yefas Toar is a complete goya. She is not interested in Judaism at all. You captured her. She's not interested in your religion. She's a POW. So it says the Gemara, by the Yefas Toar Delo Shaicha B'Mitzvos. You plucked someone out of the middle of another planet. I just got a phone call on the way here. I actually returned a phone call. This woman is a total goy, nothing shaykh to Yiddishkeit. So if I capture, you need kabbalas and mitzvos, because before we bring you in, you need to know a little bit about what's going on. So it says the Gemara, I could understand why the Rabbanan would say that the Eishes Yefas Toar needs some kabbalas and mitzvos. She has to have some shaykhs to Yiddishkeit, and she doesn't. Aval eved is shaykh b'mitzvos, but when it comes to an eved who's already an Eved Kanani, he's already the Eved, he's already chayiv in mitzvos like a woman would be. So then Hachanami Defi the Rabbanan Modi, maybe the rabbis here, even in this case, would agree that there is no requirement for kabbalas and mitzvos. Titania, where would we make such an assumption from? Because what does our brisa say? Echad ger ve'echad lokech Eved min ha'akum. If you have a ger, or someone who is purchasing an eved from a non-Jew, tzarech lekabel. What's the diuk? Halokech miYisrael ein tzarech lekabel. When you're purchasing from a Jew, then his eved is an eved Kanani. He's partially Jewish already, like a woman would be. So says the Gemara. Then there's no Kabbalah. Beautiful raya. And how money? Who says the Gemara? Money. Who would the author of this be? It must be that it's only one way. Reb Shimon. It can't be him. Reb Shimon ben Elazar. He says, Amar lokech mina akum nami ein tzarech lekabel. Elo must. What must it be? Elalav. It must be that this brayso says Rabbanan Ushma mina de lokech mina akum tzarech lekabel aval lokech miYisrael ein tzarech lekabel. So we say beautifully over here in the Gemara that the question is being asked against the Chachamim. The Chachamim seem to say that when the person is already partially Jewish, in that they're an Eved Kanani, they have the status of a woman's chiyuv in halacha. Again, no time bound mitzvos apply, but all time bound. By the way, no time bound mitzvos. I'm already confused. He is completely exempt from all time bound mitzvos. So, and that with that person is ein tzarech lekabel. So says the Gemara, if that's true that they agree in the case of an Eved Kanani, then what do we do with the case we started with today, with our opening line? We started with the line on the first wide line of Mem Zayin of Echad Ger ve'Echad Eved Meshacher. So says the Gemara, ve'ela kasha Echad Ger ve'Echad Eved Meshuchrar. So how do we understand this line at this point? Everyone seems to agree in one area, but not in another. So it says the Gemara, Tanya it was talking about something different. It was only talking about the tefillah requirement, and it wasn't talking about Kabbalah and mitzvos. So it's true, Taka, that when it comes to the Jew, you can have one set of rules, but when it comes to the Eishes Yifas Torah, that is where we have a machlokas. And then our Mishnah doesn't make sense. So only in regards to the mikvah does the Eishes Yifas Torah have to go to the mikvah that everyone agrees to, but the Kabbalah and mitzvos remains a machlokas of the Chachamim and Reb Shimon ben Elazar. Let's go into the sugya of Eishes Yifas Torah. We're 2/3 of the way down, 15 lines up or so. Tanu Rabbanon, 12 lines up. We know that when one captures this woman in war, he's not allowed to marry her right away. He first has to keep her for 30 days. She's going to weep over her family. We'll see what that means. Is she weeping over her family? Not necessarily. And she also has to be megalech es rosha ve'asasas. We know what vigilcha, she has to shave her head. What does it mean ve'asasas tziporna? She has to do her nails. So in our parlance, if someone says, I need to do my nails, that means that they want to go get a manicure. But what does it mean in the language of Chumash? Says the Gemara, this is a big machlokas tonight, or it's a machlokas tonight. Rabbi Eliezer, Omer Tikot, she has to cut her nails. Rabbi Akiva says the opposite, Omer Tagdil, let them grow. Remember when we were little kids, they had in the Guinness Book of World Records a person with the longest nails. So l'chora, 30 days is not that much time, but her nails would grow. It's gross a little bit. Then you see people in the store who attach nails to their hands that look like they've been growing for 30 days on purpose, right? So that we don't even know what these things mean anymore. But the point here was to make her look less attractive, so that his decision to marry her is a little bit more l'shem shamayim. Okay. Anyways, the Gemara says this is a machlokas, and each of them support their sheets in the following way. Amar Rabbi Eliezer, ne'emra asiya b'rosh, v'ne'emra asiya b'tzipornaim. We have precedents in the Torah that it should be talking about removal of hair, because we have this over here. And Rabbi Akiva says the opposite. Rabbi Akiva, we have a different precedent in the Torah where growing out the hair is what we're looking at, and therefore the nails should be brought out. The Raya Div Rabbi Eliezer, we have a proof of the sheets of Rabbi Eliezer, who is of the opinion that we should cut the nails, because he didn't cut his nails, and he did not do his mustache. He didn't remove them. So therefore we see that havara, removing, that's what the din is. And if we were to pass in the Gemara from this way, it seems like what we're talking about is that the din of Eishes Yifas Torah is that just like she has to shave her head, she equally has to remove her nails, cut them down. Again, how short, how long, I don't know. I've never seen any halachos on this. I'm sure the Rishonim discussed this to some degree. The what? From the little dollar, that seems like we possibly for the kiva. Oh, it does seem like that there. That's true, but in the flow of the Gemara, it doesn't seem that way.
And it seems like it's Gemara.
Correct. So there you have to get into, like, you have to look into Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. That's like the Klali HaTalmud at the end of Brachos, the Klali HaTalmud. I don't know if this is there. I'm just projecting that there's going to be something, because and also when I'm learning Gemaras and teaching them, I stick to what I see, even if the psak, it seems very strongly like Rabbi Eliezer. Correct. Yes, Dad.
What's the significance of the word beautiful? Because that's a matter of perception.
Correct.
what if she's not beautiful, but guy still wants to marry her? I don't mean she looks like a dog, but she's not a beautiful cat, but she's average looking.
Right.
Does,
I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing that if she was attractive enough for him to take her, then she has to go through this process. That's my hunch. And I don't imagine that if she is significantly ugly, that the rules would be any different. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm just Eishes Yefas Torah. It's an interesting question.
It's an interesting description. Truly is in the eyes of the beholder.
Rashi defines a Yefas Torah as the lo shaycha b'mitzvos. I don't know if that's like, that's what Rashi says 2/3 of the way down. I might be misreading this Rashi in its interpretation because it might be a qualification of the Yefas Torah, not that she isn't beautiful, but to say that she happens to also, she's beautiful. She's also not frum. She's also not Jewish. But your Yefas Torah cannot be, for example, an Eved Kanani who is shaykh in mitzvos, because she has obligations like any Jewish woman would. So that's not that woman's not subject to these rules of Eishes Yefas Torah. Eishes Yefas Torah is someone from out of tribe. She's not an Eved. She's a total POW from another country. Total supplant. Like she's just not with us. So I don't know, but again, I'm just off the cuff. My hunch is that if she's appealing enough to you to take her, then these rules probably apply. Bottom line of the page. Mem Ches Amud Aleph. It's a double entendre. I didn't mean for that. It just happened. Tana Rabbana Nuvachses Avia ve'esima, that she has to weep over her father and her mother. Machlokes, is this literal or not? Top of Mem Ches Amud Beis, Rabbi Eliezer Omer Aviha Mamish Ima Mamish. She's gonna you took her from her homeland. Her parents, she doesn't know what's with them. She said, and we have to give her 30 days. Rabbi Akiva Omer, no. Avia ve'ima zo avodas kochavim. V'chein hu Omer Omerim le'etz avi ata v'gomer. So that's a discussion as to whether or not we say that Avia ve'ima is a reference to her actual parents versus the avodas kochavim that you separated her from. She's dependent on whatever idol she was worshiping, and you've kind of plucked her from that environment. So these are the 30 days that she has to mourn, quote unquote, as to what she's lost. What is Yarach? Yomi mean by Yarach? We typically should assume a Yarech is a month. We're lunar Jews by and large, so maybe we should assume it's 30 days. So this is a machlokes. Yarach Yomim Shloshim Yom. Says the Gemara B'Shem Ben Elazar Omer Tishim Yom. How did you get to 90? Yarach is Shloshim. Yomim is Shloshim. That's 60. But Achar came another part of the pasuk is Shloshim. 30 plus 30 plus 30 is 90. Maskif Ravina. Great question. Ema. Maybe I should say Yarach Shloshim, Yomim Shloshim, like you said. But when it says Ve'achar Kain, it means equal to the prior 60, not equal to the prior 30. And therefore, it's not 60 days, but it is 120 days. Kihani, just like this, as Gemara Kashi, you're right. We don't exactly know how to learn these psukim. But like David said, when you look at the notes of the Rambam, they're typically right. And at least, certainly for the Rambam, they are. And he seems to hold 30 days, like the basic pshat of the psukim. Back to our sugya about avodim. We're going to stop with Eishes Yefas Torah now. Tanu Rabbanan mekaymin avodim she'ena malin divi Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Akiva Omer ein mekaymin. We are allowed to hold in our homes avodim who are not mal. That's a sheet of Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Akiva says absolutely not. Amalei Rabbi Shmuel, how then do you understand the pasuk? Harehu Omer, the pasuk says ve'inafesh ben hamasecha, that there has to be resting for your maidservant, for your in-house staff. And as we'll see soon, this pasuk cannot be talking about a Jew. It can only be talking about a non-Jew, only be talking about the Eved, the Eved Kanani. Says the Gemara, Amar Le, no, Rabbi Akiva answers, and it's important to mark this as answer number one, Belokeach Eved bein hashmashos, v'lo hispeak l'mo kasum medaber. He says, no. That pasuk of Yinafesh ben Hamasecha, there's an ukimta there that we're only talking about someone where I chopped up the Eved right before Shabbos started. No time to give him a bris. Oh, so if that's the case, what does he have to do on Shabbos? V'yinafesh ben hamasecha. That pasuk is only talking about a unique case of an ukimta, but it's not a regular general case of an Eved who's long-term staying in your house, who's not gemalt. That's not allowed. So that's how Rabbi Akiva understood this pasuk. To Kuli Alma Mias, everybody seems to say v'yinafesh ben hamasecha, that when the pasuk says that ben hamasecha, that the son of your maidservant has to rest, that's talking about be'eved arel ksiv. Everyone seems to agree that it's talking about an Eved that isn't arel. My mashma. Where do we get this from? So this Bryce is very explicit as to its understanding of this pasuk. The Tanya v'inafesh ben hamasecha be'eved arel hakasuv medaber. Our understanding of this pasuk is that when it says that the son of the maidservant has to rest, is that we're talking about an Eved who's uncircumcised. Ata omer be'eved arel. You want to say that it's talking about an Eved Aral, that when the pasuk says V'nafesh ben Masecha, that's what it's talking about. Oh, Einu Ela be'Eved Mahul. Maybe we should say it's talking about an Eved who is Mahul, in fact. Says the Gemara, no. Kshehu Omer, we have another pasuk, L'man Yanuach Avdecha Masecha Kamocha, Hare Eved Mahul Omer. That pasuk is talking about an Eved Mahul. Therefore, Hamani Mekayim V'nafesh ben Masecha, this pasuk cannot be talking about the same kind of Eved, because the other kind of Eved was already discussed. The Eved Mahul was discussed in the other pasuk. So therefore, the pasuk of V'nafesh ben Masecha must be speaking about Be'eved Ara. So we've extracted what we need from this, but the Brisa does continue. V'hager, when the pasuk says ger, what are we talking about? Ze ger toshav. A ger toshav is not a ger tzedek, as we'll see with short distinction shortly. This is someone who agrees to no longer do avodah zarah. They're kind of partial gerim, not in the process of gerus per se, but at least in their hashkafa, they're no longer worshiping avodah zarah. This woman I was on the phone with tonight, I said, "Are you Jewish? Do you come from the Jewish lineage?" And she said, No, we're religious Christians, but we believe that the Bible is eternal. I'm like, well, you're certainly right about that piece, but you're a goy. I didn't say that part, and no blessings for you. So she said, I know that there are discussions that some rabbis wouldn't even perform circumcisions for a Christian family. I said, it is a conversation to be had. So then this is where I have to stick it to be super clear. And of course, at the completion of this circumcision, your son will be just as Jewish after the circumcision as he was before, which is just like you, which is Christian. So let's not have any lack of clarity as to who's who here. She totally understood where I was coming from. And parenthetically, the poskim aren't concerned about this concern when you do a circumcision for a goy. It's quoted in Ramah and Shulchan Aruch. The Shach deals with it over there about whether or not it's appropriate to do a bris for free for a goy because of los chaneim and some other halachic issues. I have no intention of doing this for free. I always send. I'm much more. I'm so frum. I charge extra. No, I don't charge extra.
We see clearly there's 3 ingredients, and this is only one. So
oh yeah, but I don't even do l'shem gerus because it's already a b'chil l'shem. I would never do that.
How can there's nowhere to make a mistake.
But they don't know anything. So they may say Rabbi Karesh is my rabbi and my son is a Jew. And then that's not good. So I keep a record that when I do a calendar invite for a Yid, it says the Karesh family bris. And when I do it for a family that's not Jewish, it's the Smith family circumcision. So if I run a report, which events have the word circumcision in it, those are all the goyim. And the ones that say bris, I know that they're a yid. I checked into their yichus one way or the other. I need that for me. So when a Rav calls me and says I'm a Sada Kedushin in 10 years, the kids they're 11 years old, the oldest kids, I've started 12 years old, whatever. So in 10 years, or you get a bar mitzvah note, this secular kid in the northern suburbs, he wants to have his bar mitzvah at our show. We have a requirement that we have to know he's a yid. So I'll have a record of that the kid's a yid, or not. So you're the bad cop many times over as a moel. It's not all roses, mostly roses, but not all roses. Anyways, where were we? Okay, so that's what the Gemara says, that's a ger toshav. And when the pasuk says ger toshav, the Brisa questions that third of the way down. Memches and the Beis Omer ze ger toshav einu ela ger tzedek. How do we know that pasuk's not talking about a full ger? Why are you saying it's only a ger toshav? Says the Gemara, because another pasuk speaks about ger tzedek. Kshehu omer begercha asher b'sharecha re ger tzedek omer. That pasuk's talking about a ger tzedek. Hamani makayim v'hager. What then is used by the extraneous word of v'hager? Says the Gemara, by definition, we have no other choice. By process of elimination, that word must be talking about ze ger toshav. Halfway down, another sugya. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, halokech eved min ha'akum v'lo ratza lemul megalgel. Let's say that you are purchasing an eved from a non-Jew, and the eved, understandably, doesn't want to go through circumcision. So the halacha is megalgel. We push it off a little bit. We give him a little bit of time to kind of change his mind. Let me show you what it's like living in my house. I'll take good care of you, and maybe you'll have a bris down the road. Megalgel limo ad yud beis chodesh. He has up to 12 months. If you are unsuccessful in convincing this man to get a circumcision after 12 months, first of all, call me. And then when you're done with that, you have to sell him back to a guy. If you can't convince him to get the bris, lo mal chozer u'mocher lo'ovdei kochavim. Amru Rabbanan kamei de Rav Papa. They were telling this story of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, this psak of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi over to Rav Papa. And he says, Keman, it must be Deloka Rabbi Akiva. Why is this not like Rabbi Akiva? Because what did Rabbi Akiva say earlier? Di Rabbi Akiva Amar Ein Mekaymin. He already said above, we don't keep Arel Avadim in our homes. We don't do that. So this certainly can't be him. So says the Gemara, that's not true. Amar Lehu Rav Papa. Remember, this was being said in front of Rav Papa. He said, no, you're wrong. Afilu tema Rabbi Akiva. Hani mili hecha de lo paska lemilse. That's if he said categorically, b'shum panim va'ofen, there's a 0% chance I'm ever going to have a circumcision. No way, no how. Don't buy me. I'm not going to do it. I refuse. However, aval hecha de paska lemilse, paska. But if at any point he said, all right, yeah, I'll consider it, and then you hire him or buy him, and then he's like, I've got cold feet, I'm nervous, I don't want to do it. So that's different. That's when we give the 12 months. And therefore, this brisa could even be according to Rabbi Akiva. Amar Rav Kahana. Rav Kahana says, Amrise l'shmaisa kamid Rav Zvid min Harda. This whole maisa was repeated in front of, or the question and the answer was repeated in front of Rav Zvid. Amar li ihachi. If this is true, ki Amar le Rabbi Akiva belokech eved ben hashmashos lishni le hai. Why above did Rabbi Akiva give the answer of this strange ukimta that it was ben hashmashos right before Shabbos, and we weren't sure? Why did you have to go with that ukimta? Give over this ukimta that no, he initially said yes, and then he said no. They're both viable answers to answer up the brisa from above. Why did we choose to use different answers? Says the Gemara, you could have used either one. Both of the answers work. Okay, so now we've seen two possible answers to the Rabbi Akiva world. Answer number one was the ukimta, that the reason why this pasuk is speaking about this one eved is because we bought him right before Shkia. There was no time to do a bris, halachically speaking, so he got pushed off. And the second answer was this one, which is that he had initially said that he would, and then he changed his mind. Next, says the Gemara, first long line, all connected. Shalach Ravin Mishmei Rabbi Loi. He sent the following. All of my rabbis taught me Mishmo in his name. Ezu Eved Arel Shemuter Lekaimo. Who is an Eved that is uncircumcised, that's permissible to keep in your house? Zeshalakhu Rabo Al Minas Shalolamulo. He bought him on condition that he would not need a bris. These guys are bartering all the right things. I'm happy to be your Eved. I'm not happy to go through the procedure. So says the Gemara, Amruha Rabbanan Kamed Rav Papa Kiman. And similarly, they brought this in front of Rav Papa, and they said, who is this like? It must be the look Rabbi Akiva. Rav Papa, it can't be like it's Rabbi Akiva, because the Rabbi Akiva, Ha'amar Ein Mekaimen. So Amar Lahu Rav Papa, you're not right. I could even make this story just like Rabbi Akiva. Afilu Tema Rabbi Akiva. Hani Mili. When no condition was made, so that's when Rabbi Akiva says you're not allowed to hold on to an Eved Arel. But if in fact there was a condition that was made, okay, then Rabbi Akiva would embrace the condition. So you got to know your game. It's like not knowing the terms and conditions. But if you know the terms and conditions, you know how to dance through all the paperwork. So Rabbi Akiva said, okay, if you make a condition, great. If you don't. Now, Amar of Kahana. Very similar lay of the story, because there was obviously this is where we learned some historical notes where somebody went from Rav Papa's base medrash to Rav Zvid's base medrash in Narada. So this is where the historians kind of draw their dotted maps. Like we know the people were going back and forth in the times of Rav Kahana. That's what the Gemara would pick up here. Anyways, they brought this mice in front of Rav Kahana, and the Amar Li, he said, "Ihachi ki Amar Le Rabbi Akiva belokech Eved ben Hashmashos velo hispik lamulo lishni." Why didn't he give this answer? This is also a great answer. Oh, that was where he didn't make a condition. That's Rabbi Akiva says no. But when there is a condition, it's mutter. Why didn't you say that? Says the Gemara, you had three possible answers. You have the answer that we started with about Ben Hashmashos. Answer number two is Paskale, and then he changed his mind. And answer number three is the one that we just said now, which is that you made a condition. Says the Gemara, all of them are valid answers. Elachad, Mitre, Bitzlas, Ta'ame, Kamar. There are three possible answers. All of them are valid. This is very unique that all of them are valid, because usually as learners, when we see two different answers, we ask ourselves, L'may nafkamina. What's the difference between the answer of Ben Hashmashos versus the answer of the T'nai versus the answer of Lo Paska? And we could, on our own, without any Rishonim, come up with significant distinctions. Yet here, the Gemara embraces all three of those answers as valid, very, very unique. Okay. Last two sugyas for the night. We're going to go to the last word on the page. Says the Gemara, 3/4 of the way down, 8 lines into the wide lines. Yossi Rav Chanina, Bar Papi, Rav Ami, Rav Yitzchak Nafcha, Akila de Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. All of them were on the porch of Rav Yitzchak Nafcha. They were talking about the following. There was one particular community in Eretz Yisrael. They kind of banded together. All of the men, they're like, okay, we'll work for you, but we absolutely, categorically refuse to get circumcised. They held on to them for 12 months, per the halacha that we learned above, that you can hold on to them for 12 months. And they ended up returning the sale. They went back to the Akum and they sold them, probably at a loss. Kiman, who is this like? Says the Gemara, it's Ki Haitana Detanya, like the author of the following brisa, which says, Halokech Eved min ha'akum v'laratza lamu, like the brisa we saw above, that if you buy an Eved from a non-Jew and he doesn't want to have a bris, Megal Galimo Ad Shnei L'Srei Chodesh, then we hold on to him for 12 months. Lo Mal Chozer U'Mochro Le'Ovdei Kochavim. That's what the Tanna Kama holds. Reb Shimon ben Elazar adds to this. Omer, he says, Ein Mashino So Be'eretz Yisrael Mibnei Hev Setaris. You're not allowed to keep him in Eretz Yisrael at all. Get out. No permission at all. Why? Because we have a din derabanan that a goy is going to be mitame things, no matter what. Doesn't matter, erlich matter, it doesn't matter. We assume they're tameh, and if they touch any of the towers, it's going to be a problem. Ubir smucha l'sapar, if there's a city that's close to a border city, Sapar was a city that was like the city up against the line, up against the border. So then there, ein mashno so kol ikar, there we for sure don't let any of the avadim there, because shema yishama davar v'yelech v'yomer lechavero oved kochavim. You might go tell some private secrets of the country, security secrets, whatever, or where the money is held, whatever it is, we're afraid of, or we were afraid of in that time at least. Last brisa for the day, a sensitive brisa. Tanya Reb Chananya ben Osher Rabban Gamliel Omer. Why is it that those who are converts of Bisman Hazen, our time, this is a brisa, so this is 2,000 years ago. This is not even Amoraim, this is before that. But in that period of time, why is it that they were me'unin, from the word inui, that they were suffering, they would go through tribulations? Because in their previous halachic life, before they were yid, they were not mekayim the sheva mitzvos b'nei noach. Says the Gemara, that's not fair. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Gershon Iskar Katan Shinolam Tami. He's got a fresh, clean slate. You can't hold a cloud over him for what he was before. That's not right. Therefore, he gives a different answer. Rabbi Yossi says, okay, a lot of the halachos that we know them viscerally, even if we don't know them with Mari Makomos. You put up your pinky during, okay, it's not a din, you don't have to do that. I'm just saying that we know a lot just from being around the culture. We're acculturated to halacha in many cases. I don't know what this means. I would have thought the exact opposite, but the Gemara says that at that time that they were doing this out of ahava instead of out of Yira. Rashi says, 2 lines from the bottom, Miyiras Gehenim v'haporanos hamur aleim. Maybe when they were going through the process, the fear of heaven was instilled into them, as they say. Maybe the fear of Gehenim was instilled into them. But Afal Pikein, there should have also been a beauty that drew them to Yiddishkeit. That was like the Rashi we saw yesterday, that halavai, that I should be zoche, to be mishtatef in the tzara of Klal Yisrael. Again, I know how we look at people who convert, which is that you are very impressive. You've given up culture A for culture B. One's more free, one's more restrictive, and that's beautiful. Good for you. So that's his answer. Others say that they delayed. They were not bizrizus in regards to their decision from yes, I know that the Torah is emes, to actually converting. Now remember, we don't proselytize, and we still have the same checks and balances of the conversion process. Don't you know that the Jews are Dzechuyim and the Segufim and all the other words we learned yesterday? Don't you know? We do go through the process, but once you know the Torah's emes, you need to make a beeline for conversion. It says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Bovi Temer Rabbi Chanina Maikra. Where do we see this from? We see it from Rus. Says the Gemara, Yishalim Hashem pe'ulech v'ati maskurtech shalimami im Hashem elokei Yisrael asher bas lachsos v'gomer. That you were bus, that you showed up, you arrived, you came to this point. And the Meforshim explain, take a look at Rashi, asher bas shemi hart v'lo ichart, that you went quickly and you did not go slowly. So there is this moment of clarity that when a person is becoming more and more aware of Yiddishkeit, that once they cross the threshold of I know this is emes, no more dilly-dallying. It's time to go. We got to make sure that these people get converted, and we should welcome them tachas kanfei hashchina with all of the psukim and all the full sensitivities that speak about the need to love a ger. We'll stop right here. Wishing you all a beautiful night.